It started with silence, the kind that doesn't scream, doesn't rattle, doesn't punch a hole through the wall. No, this silence was worse. It was still, calculated, final. The kind of silence that settles over a battlefield after all the weapons have been dropped but before the bodies are counted. That was the silence I sat in when I found out. My wife, Sienna, my Sienna, had been sleeping with my brother, Tobias. Of all people, it wasn't even some accident she regretted. She loved him. That's what she said in the voicemail I wasn't supposed to hear. I'm tired of pretending, Tobias, she whispered, breathless. I love you. I don't want to go back to him. I must have replayed it 20 times, each repetition draining something vital out of me. I didn't throw my phone. I didn't yell. I just sat there and listened to the sound of my world cracking like glass beneath a slow, deliberate heel. I didn't confront her. Not right away. I wanted to see if she'd say it herself. She didn't. She came home that night smelling of eucalyptus and lies, tossed her bag on the couch like nothing was out of place, and kissed me like habit. Not love. Just motion. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I waited. I thought, stupidly, that maybe my family would have my back. That blood still meant something. That someone would say, what she did was unforgivable, or, you didn't deserve this, or even just, I'm sorry. But the apology never came. Instead, a texted from my mother, Corinne. I read it 3 times before it fully sank in. It's best if you don't come this year. It'll be too awkward. Awkward? For who? For the woman who ripped my heart out and handed it to my brother like a wedding gift? For the man who used to play video games in my room and steal my clothes, now stealing my wife too? Was I the problem now? I stared at my phone like it had turned into something poisonous. My thumb hovered over the screen as if I could will it to change, to say something else. Something decent. Something human. But no. Just those cold, clipped words from a woman who raised me. The silence broke the next day when my dad, Raymond, called. His voice was impatient, like he'd been waiting for me to respond, and was annoyed I hadn't. You need to stop playing the victim, he said. You were never right for her. There was a pause. I think he expected me to fight back, to beg for approval like I used to when I was 16 and trying to borrow the car. But I just let the words sink in like stones in a frozen lake. You were never right for her. It echoed in my chest, over and over, until I didn't recognize the sound of my own pulse anymore. Then Tobias called. Or maybe I called him. I honestly don't remember. All I know is I heard his voice, that smug cadence he always used when he got away with something. She chose the better man, he said. Just like that. Like this was a high school rivalry, and he'd finally won the trophy. I don't even remember what my face looked like in that moment, but I remember smiling. Bitter. Tight. The kind of smile that hurts more than any cry. You've all shown me exactly who you are, I told him. Thanks for making it easy. Then I blocked them, one by one. Deleted their numbers, their threads, their photos. It felt like surgery, cutting out a tumor you'd convinced yourself was just part of your body. Painful. Necessary. Clean. But that wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. I spent the rest of that night alone, lights off, music off, everything off. Just me and the hum of the refrigerator, the creak of the walls, the echo of memories that had nowhere to go. I looked around the apartment that Sienna and I used to decorate together, our fake little love nest. Her shoes by the door, the photo of us at the lake still framed on the hallway table. I didn't touch them. I didn't want to give her the satisfaction of a dramatic scene. Let them believe I cracked. Let them think I spiraled. I didn't care. Because in that silence, between my mother's text and my father's betrayal and my brother's smirk, I found something else. Clarity. They had cast me out. Fine. Let them. But I wouldn't be the one begging to come back. I wouldn't be the one knocking on the window while they sat inside at the holiday table I helped pay for, laughing over wine and carving turkeys with hands that had stabbed me in the back. No, I would not be the ghost in their perfect family portrait. They disinvited me? Good. Because I was about to rewrite the guest list. And none of them were getting in. I packed what was left of my life into the back seat of my car. A few duffel bags. 2 boxes of clothes. My old laptop. Everything else I left behind, her jewelry on the vanity, the wine glasses we never used, the live, laugh, love, print on the wall that mocked me now. I didn't slam the door when I left. I closed it softly. Like I was afraid even the house might hear me and feel sorry. Malcolm lived 20 minutes across town. My best friend since college. We used to joke that if our lives ever blew up, We'd end up in each other's spare rooms watching bad movies and drinking cheap beer. Well, life blew up. And there I was, standing outside his apartment, heart heavy in my chest, fingers wrapped tight around the steering wheel, trying to find the strength to knock. The door opened before I could. Malcolm was already waiting, holding a coffee mug and wearing that familiar look. Half concern, half, say the word, and I'll burn the world down for you. You look like shit, he said. I feel worse. He stepped aside. Spare room's yours. No questions asked. I nodded, swallowing hard. The place smelled like cinnamon and old leather. Books stacked sideways on tables. A hoodie draped over the couch. Lived in, but safe. The kind of place where nothing unexpected happens. No betrayals. No whispered phone calls. Just the steady hum of someone who still believes in loyalty. I dropped my bags in the guest room, small, square, and spotless. A bed with clean sheets. A lamp that actually worked. No trace of my past here. Just the future I didn't know what to do with. I didn't cry. I didn't have the energy. I just collapsed onto the bed and stared at the ceiling, trying to forget the way my name had been erased from the holiday invitations. Like I was the one who broke something. The days blurred. I didn't go out much. Didn't shave. Barely ate. I lived like a ghost. I'd wake up, scroll, sleep, repeat. Social media became a daily punch to the gut. There they were, Tobias and Sienna, smiling in my parents' living room, laughing like nothing was broken. A wine bottle on the table. My mother's golden centerpiece gleaming beneath warm lights. The same table I built with my own hands. Sanded it down in my father's garage. Spent weekends measuring, varnishing, staining. My dad said, "You build this, son, and one day your kids lead at it." Now Tobias was sitting at the head, fork in one hand, Sienna on his arm like they'd always belonged. And me? I was in a spare room that didn't even have curtains. What hurt the most wasn't Sienna. It wasn't even Tobias. It was Corinne, my mother, posting pictures like I never existed, captioning one with, "Love always finds a way." She wasn't just condoning it. She was celebrating it. I'd been replaced, smudged out like a typo in the family photo album. One morning, I found myself staring at that post for 10 straight minutes. The comment section overflowed with hearts and beautiful couple, and meant to be. One of my cousins even replied, "Glad to see her with someone who treats her right." That one cut so deep I nearly dropped the phone. I thought about replying, about setting the record straight, but I didn't, because this wasn't about proving them wrong. This was about realizing the people who claimed to love me never really did. Malcolm came home that night with 2 takeout bags and a 6-pack. "You need to eat. And shower. In that order." "I'm not hungry." "Too bad. I didn't ask." We ate on the couch. Chicken wings and fries. Something about the grease and the silence made me feel human again. "You ever going to tell me what really happened?" he asked gently. I shook my head. "You already know enough." "Fair." He took a swig of beer. "But for what it's worth, you didn't deserve this." I looked at him, grateful. Not just for the words, but for the fact that he didn't follow them with, "But family is family," or "Just try to move on." He didn't try to fix it. He just sat with me in the mess. That night, I lay awake and stared at the ceiling fan turning slowly overhead. I thought about the first time Sienna met Tobias. She laughed too hard at his jokes, touched his arm when she talked. I chalked it up to friendliness. I trusted her. I trusted them all. That was my mistake. But trust isn't weakness. Betrayal is. And they were the ones who chose that path. I wasn't going to be their ghost anymore. I wasn't going to scroll through their lives like some unwanted memory. They thought I would disappear. But I wasn't done yet. I wasn't supposed to care anymore. That's what they wanted, that I'd drift off, vanish quietly, take the loss, and move on like some sad footnote in their perfect story. Tobias gets the girl. The family smiles again. The black sheep disappears into silence. But the thing about being forgotten is, it sets you free. No one sees you coming. It started on a cold Tuesday. I was sitting on Malcolm's floor, surrounded by a pile of unopened mail, eating cereal out of a coffee mug when a thought struck me. Tobias was living in that duplex. The one I co-signed. The one my parents begged me to put my name on so Tobias could get back on his feet after his 3rd failed startup. I had almost forgotten about it in the chaos. But I never signed anything without scanning a copy. And somewhere, deep in my inbox, was that contract. I searched for it, clicked through old emails, spam folders, scanned PDFs until I found it. There it was, both our names. Mine first. I was still listed as co-owner, which meant I had rights, which meant Tobias was sleeping in a house that had my name on the deed and laughing like he built it himself. I stared at that document for a long time, heartbeat ticking like a countdown clock. Then I opened a fresh note on my phone and started listing everything Sienna still owed me. We'd split expenses when we moved in together, at least, that was the plan. New couch, bed frame, rugs, even the espresso machine she insisted on and used maybe twice. I covered more than I admitted. Back then, I just wanted peace. But now, I wanted justice. Legal, cold, emotionless justice. I tallied it all. The receipts were in an old shared folder we never deleted. Stupid mistake on her part. I screenshotted everyone, added the totals, created a formal invoice. $3,872.91. Not even close to the price of betrayal, but a start. That evening, I sent Malcolm a message. I'm done being quiet. He sent back a single thumbs-up emoji and a pizza order link. My kind of friend. The next day, I sent an email to my parents. Subject line, regarding property co-ownership. It read, as co-signer and co-owner of the duplex at 1436 Maple Street, I'm initiating my withdrawal from the property. You have 30 days to buy out my share or I will force a sale through legal proceedings. All communication going forward should be done through email for documentation purposes. I stared at the screen before hitting send. My finger hovered for a beat. Then I clicked. A small, quiet satisfaction bloomed in my chest. Within 5 minutes, my phone exploded. First, my mom. You can't be serious. This is Tobias's home. Then my dad. What are you trying to prove? Don't ruin this family. Even Tobias texted. You're really doing this? I didn't reply. I left them all on read. Because it wasn't about being heard anymore. It was about being felt. They'd forgotten who they were messing with. I wasn't loud. I wasn't dramatic. But I was meticulous. I played the long game. And they'd just given me the opening. Later that evening, I sent Sienna the invoice. Attached PDFs. Labeled. Itemized. Every dollar accounted for. Subject line. Outstanding balances. Formal request for payment. She replied 5 minutes later. A heart emoji. No text. No acknowledgement. Just that little red heart, like this was a joke. Like I was some ex still pining for her attention. I sat there, blinking at it. My jaw clenched. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. Then I deleted the draft I had started, no emotion, no back and forth, and sent her a second email. This one wasn't friendly. This is a formal demand for payment. Failure to comply within 14 business days will result in escalation to small claims court. I attached the formal letterhead, drafted it using a free legal template. It looked serious because it was. That night, Malcolm poured us both a drink. Bourbon, neat. He raised his glass to mine. To flipping the board. I clinked it. To no more letting things go. They thought they broke me. What they really did was free me from any illusion that they ever had my back. Sienna, Tobias, my parents, they could smile in their holiday photos all they wanted. But now there'd be a paper trail. One they couldn't scrub with cute captions or fake apologies. I went to bed that night and, for the first time in weeks, slept without waking up in the middle of the night replaying their voices. I didn't dream about the betrayal. I didn't hear my mother's text or my father's judgment or Tobias's smirk. Just silence. Not the kind that follows pain, but the kind that makes room for power. They wanted me quiet. They forgot silence can roar. The morning the email landed, the sky was a dull stretch of gray, the kind that pressed on your shoulders like a weight you couldn't shake off. But me? I felt lighter. Lighter than I had in months. Because the message had been sent, and I wasn't waiting on anyone's approval anymore. Not my mother's understanding. Not my father's pride. And definitely not Tobias's permission. I took my time getting out of bed, brewed coffee slowly, poured it into a chipped mug Malcolm never replaced because it reminded him of college. I sat on the worn couch in the living room, phone resting face up on the armrest, and watched the rain tap against the window like a rhythm only I understood. It wasn't peace exactly, but it was movement. I wasn't stuck anymore. Around 9:14 a.m., my phone buzzed. Dad. I didn't answer. Then Mom. Ignored. Then Tobias. 3 messages, one after another. You're being ridiculous. Let's talk. You're really doing this? Yes. I was. I left every message on read, not out of pettiness, but out of clarity. If I had learned anything, it was that responding to people who only reach out when their comfort is threatened was a waste of breath. By noon, The phone was silent. That afternoon, I went one step further. I opened a new document and started drafting the official motion for a buyout or forced sale. I had no lawyer yet, but I wasn't bluffing. I uploaded everything to a secure cloud drive. Title, deed, proof of cosign, every receipt from our renovation. The moment they thought I was out of moves, I was already 3 ahead. At 2:07 p.m., Sienna responded to the formal invoice I'd sent her the night before. Her reply was 3 words, "You're so petty." I stared at the screen for a long beat, then typed, "Petty doesn't come with receipts." "I do." Then I attached the demand letter again, this time with a deadline clearly listed, 14 business days. No exceptions. 2 minutes later, she replied with a gif. Some actress rolling her eyes. I didn't even know which one. I didn't care. I closed the thread, took a breath, and muted her contact. This wasn't about emotional validation. It was about business, about principle, about boundaries. It was about power. And for the first time, I wasn't handing mine away. The next day, Malcolm and I were on the balcony, watching traffic crawl by and eating cold pizza from the box. He leaned against the railing and said, "You think any of them feel bad?" "No," I answered. "They feel exposed." "That's not the same thing." He nodded slowly, chewing. "Still, you're coming back harder than I expected." I didn't reply right away. My eyes traced the skyline, the way the city stretched into haze like a story still being written. Then I said, "It's not about revenge." "Not really. It's about reminding them that I wasn't some ornament they could throw away when it clashed with the decor." "Poetic," he said with a smirk. "Practical," I replied. Later that night, my mother called again. This time I let it ring, just so I could hear her voice crack through voicemail. "You don't have to do this," she said. "You're not this kind of person." That part made me laugh out loud. As if being the kind of person who expected fairness, who enforced boundaries, who sent polite legal emails instead of screaming matches, somehow made me the villain. That had always been their dynamic. Twist the narrative just enough that the one who walked away looked like the problem. But this time, they couldn't twist it without tripping over the paper trail I left behind. Every forwarded receipt, every signed agreement, every polite message with timestamps and clear language. They weren't just proof. They were power plays. Paper cuts that bled real consequences. I sent a follow-up email to my father that night. It was short, simple. "Since you're so concerned about family embarrassment, I suggest moving quickly. A forced sale would become a matter of public record. You have 21 days left." No reply. Just silence. Good. By the weekend, the real estate agent I'd contacted had drafted a preliminary listing agreement. I hadn't signed yet, but I wanted them to feel the heat. I sent it to Tobias's email with a short note. "Consider this your courtesy preview." He replied within an hour. "You think you're scaring me?" I didn't respond. Because I wasn't trying to scare him. I was ending him, at least the version of him that coasted on my silence, my support, my blind spots. The version that took everything and gave nothing but smirks and betrayal in return. That Sunday, Sienna sent the first of 2 payments. Venmo, $2,000. Caption, "Happy now?" I didn't respond. The next day, she sent the remaining $1,872.91. No caption, just silence. Then she blocked me. I laughed when the app told me the transaction couldn't be replied to. Like that erased the debt. Like that undid the mess. But I didn't chase it. The money wasn't justice, but it was acknowledgement. And acknowledgement, when it came from people who tried to erase you, was almost better than an apology. That night, I sat back in Malcolm's recliner, turned off my phone, and finally let the silence settle, not as a weight, but as a shield. No phone calls. No gaslighting. No fake reconciliations wrapped in guilt. Just me. And for once, that was enough. It happened on a Thursday. Gray clouds outside, late morning. I had just stepped out of the shower when the pounding started on the door. Not a knock. Not a friendly tap. A fist. Over and over like someone was trying to break through. I froze for half a second, heart stuttering in my chest, then threw on a shirt and opened the door. Tobias. Hair disheveled. Eyes wild. Jaw clenched so tight I thought he might shatter his own teeth. And that smug little twist in his mouth he always wore when he thought he was winning? Gone. "I need to talk to you," he snapped, stepping forward like he could push his way through. Malcolm appeared from the kitchen before I could even open my mouth. "Not here, man. Back off." But Tobias wasn't here for calm. He shoved Malcolm aside hard enough to rattle the wall. and stormed into the apartment like he still had a right to something. I backed up a step, my fist instinctively clenched at my side, a quiet pulse of rage tapping in my chest. "You think this is funny?" he barked. "You think ruining my life is some kind of game?" I stared at him. "Ruining your life?" "I sent an invoice and made a legal request about a property that I co-own. If you can't handle consequences." He lunged. Not a punch, not a full-blown attack, but a shove fast and desperate and fueled by whatever bruised ego had finally burst open inside him. My back hit the edge of the table. Pain flared along my ribs. I shoved back, harder. And then Malcolm was between us, arms up, voice low but razor-sharp. "Get out. Now." Tobias's face twisted like he couldn't believe this was real, that someone wasn't bending to his tantrum. "You've always been a bitter little loser," he hissed at me, voice shaking. "Sienna saw it. Everyone sees it. You're nothing without us." I stepped forward, closer than I had before. My voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. "You mean without you?" I said. "Because I'm doing just fine. You're the one pounding on doors like a child." He sneered. "She chose the better man." I nodded slowly, letting the words hang in the air. Then I said the one thing that gutted him. "She didn't choose. She settled." Malcolm pushed him gently but firmly toward the door. "Get out, before I call the cops." Tobias pointed a trembling finger at me. "You think this is over? You think this makes you the good guy?" "No," I said, "but it makes me free." The door slammed behind him. For a long moment, none of us moved. Malcolm let out a long breath and turned to me. "You all right? Physically?" "Yeah." "Emotionally?" I shrugged. That was overdue. He gave a short, bitter laugh. "He's not used to people saying no." I nodded. And he definitely wasn't ready for the consequences. Later that evening, I sent a message to my mother. It wasn't a warning. It was a line in the sand. "If Tobias shows up again, I will file for a restraining order. This isn't a threat. This is a promise. Control him." She replied within minutes. "Don't threaten family." I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed. "Then start acting like one." I didn't get a reply after that. Not for hours. When it finally came, it was vague and cold. "He's under a lot of pressure. Maybe give him some grace." Grace. That word again. Always asked of me. Never offered to me. The next day, Malcolm got a new doorbell camera installed. "You shouldn't have to live like you're waiting for the next blow-up," he said. He was right. I wasn't just dealing with a breakup or betrayal. I was dealing with a man who had spent his entire life skating by on charm and favoritism, and now he was slipping. Hard. Tobias had always been the golden boy. The one who just needed a little help. The one who had potential. The one who could lie straight to someone's face and still get handed another chance. And now, he was unraveling because the person he'd stolen from, lied to, betrayed, me, had finally stopped playing along. He had no more excuses. No more backup. No more cushion. That weekend, I got a call from an unknown number. I didn't answer. Minutes later, a voicemail came through. "Sienna." Her voice was slow, deliberate, tired. "I don't know what you're trying to prove with all of this, but I hope you're happy. He's not who I thought he was. And you? Well, maybe I didn't know you either. Goodbye." I deleted the message. Because I didn't need closure from a woman who only reached out when her safety net collapsed. I wasn't her therapist. I wasn't her fallback. I was the man they underestimated. And now I was the one holding the pen. They thought I'd crumble. But Tobias was the one breaking apart. And I hadn't even really started yet. The duplex listing went live on a crisp Monday morning, tucked between family-friendly homes and overpriced condos on the agency's website. The photos were bright and professional. White walls, clean countertops, staged furniture that made it look like someone actually cared about the space. I stared at the page for a while, not because I was second-guessing the decision, but because I wanted to remember what it felt like to take control of something they thought I'd forgotten. By lunchtime, the first text rolled in. "Tobias, you can't be serious. Take the listing down." "Mom, this is humiliating." "Dad, you're destroying the family." I read them like spam. Detached. Quietly satisfied. Malcolm peered over my shoulder as I scrolled. "Didn't take long. Didn't think it would. You want me to screen your text for the week?" I smiled. Tempting. Tobias called twice that afternoon. I didn't pick up. Then he sent a voice note. One I didn't bother opening. He had used his voice enough. Shouted enough. Lied enough. Now it was my turn to be the quiet one. The real estate agent called a few hours later to confirm showing times. I gave her the green light. No hesitations. No guilt. That evening, as I stepped out onto Malcolm's balcony with a cup of coffee, my phone buzzed again. Sienna. This time, a Venmo notification. $1,500. Caption. Partial. I blinked. Partial? We were past the point of partial. I had sent her the invoice weeks ago. She ignored it. Then mocked it. Then blocked me. Now she wanted to dribble pennies back into my life like that would undo the damage? A second notification followed. $2,000. Caption. Final. It wasn't the money that hit me, it was the nerve. The casual way she made it transactional. Like we were just settling a dinner bill after a bad date. I didn't reply. Didn't even open the app again that night. The funds would clear. That was enough. And yet, as I watched the city lights flicker beneath a clouded sky, a different kind of emotion stirred. Not sadness. Not rage. Closure. Not the fairy tale kind. The real kind. The kind you carve out of wreckage when no one offers it to you. The next day, my mom called. Again. I let it go to voicemail, then played it on speaker for Malcolm to hear while we made eggs. Her voice trembled, but not with remorse. With frustration. You're tearing this family apart. That property was Tobias's fresh start. You don't need the money. This is vindictive. I cracked an egg harder than necessary. Malcolm said, you should send her a fruit basket. Every time she talks, you look more like the reasonable one. I almost laughed. Almost. Later that week, the whispers started. It began with a message from cousin Denise, someone I hadn't spoken to in years. Hey. I don't know what's going on with the family, but I heard Tobias is getting kicked out. Just wanted to check on you. Check on me? Funny. But I didn't ignore it. I replied. Appreciate the message. Long story short, he and Sienna betrayed me. The family chose sides. I chose peace. She didn't reply right away. Then, damn, I didn't know it was like that. Exactly. People had been fed a version of events where I was the bitter one, the angry brother who couldn't handle a breakup. But now, the narrative was shifting. Sienna had posted a moody quote about learning who your real friends are. Tobias deleted his Instagram altogether. My mom posted a picture of a wine glass and a Bible verse with the caption Faith in Trials. Meanwhile, I posted nothing. Didn't need to. Because truth doesn't need a microphone, it just waits. And eventually, it echoes. One of the neighbors near the duplex contacted the agent and asked, isn't that the house the Vance boy used to stay in? That was how I knew the story was circulating. My parents' golden castle, the illusion of the perfect family, had cracks now. And they couldn't plaster over them with smiles and wine glasses anymore. The agent told me Tobias tried to contact her directly, asked if she could slow things down. She declined. Smart woman. The showing went well. A young couple with a toddler loved the space. Said they could picture their daughter growing up there. I almost smiled at that. It wasn't just about kicking Tobias out. It was about turning something poisoned into something clean again. By the time the offer came through, full price, I didn't hesitate. I forwarded the paperwork to my parents. My dad responded first. This is madness. Then a follow-up. You were always dramatic. That word again. Always. But I was done playing the part they wrote for me. My mom finally texted me a few days later. I hope this was worth it. I didn't reply. Because it was. Tobias was losing his cushion. Sienna had paid, if only in dollars, not dignity. And I was no longer waiting for someone to rescue me from the fire. I had learned to walk through it. And now they could all feel the heat. They always said Tobias had the charm. That easy grin, the way he could walk into a room and make everyone lean in closer. It didn't matter that he never finished anything he started or that his business ventures were mostly smoke and mirrors. He looked the part, said the right things. And that was enough for them. For years, I let him wear that title, the Golden Boy. I let him soak up the praise while I handled the hard parts. I kept things running, cleaned up his messes, paid off his overdraft fees more than once, took the blame when things went wrong. Because he was family. Because I was supposed to. But now? Now the shine was peeling off. Fast. It started subtly. A comment under one of Sienna's old posts. Didn't she used to be engaged to his brother? Then another. Awkward much? She turned off comments the next day. Then came the whispers in the family group threads. Well, the ones I was no longer a part of. Cousin May sent me a message out of nowhere. This thing you're doing. It's making people uncomfortable. I stared at the message like it was written in another language. Uncomfortable? They weren't uncomfortable when my brother was in bed with my fiancée. They weren't uncomfortable when my parents told me to skip Christmas to keep things smooth. But now that I'd held a mirror to their betrayal, now they squirmed? I didn't respond. She followed up. You're causing a scene. So I sent her a few screenshots. The invoice I sent to Sienna. The property co-signed document. The polite, legal emails I'd sent my parents and Tobias. She left me on read. Because when you show people receipts, they either shut up or show who they really are. Malcolm watched me from across the room. He was on his third coffee of the day and had this slow grin spreading across his face. You're not even saying much, he said. But somehow, you're the one flipping their world upside down. I'm not loud, I replied. I'm thorough. Tobias and Sienna, on the other hand, were cracking. Sienna's social media turned into cryptic reposts about self-care and people being threatened by your peace. Translation? She was drowning in judgment and trying to claw her way back to a narrative where she was the victim. Good luck with that. Tobias tried to throw a birthday party a few weeks later. Only a handful of people showed. And someone, I don't know who, mentioned in a comment that it was a weird look to be celebrating when you just got booted from your rent-free house. He deleted the post. Then his whole profile. I didn't celebrate. Not outwardly. But something inside me began to settle. Not in vengeance. Just in quiet vindication. They'd spent so long propped up by family illusions and filtered facades. But none of that held up against actual truth. My mom stopped posting entirely. Raymond, my father, left a voicemail on my phone. You've made your point. Now it's time to let things go. Enough's enough. I didn't respond. Because they didn't understand that this wasn't about making a point. This wasn't petty. This was me, holding people accountable. For once. Tobias had always been the son they defended, no matter what he did. The one they bailed out, the one they excused. And now, that same son had embarrassed them. Publicly. Repeatedly. And they had to sit in it. The house was gone. Sold. No more side income for my parents. No more free living for Tobias. No more holding anything over me. And with Sienna blocked on every platform that mattered, I didn't have to watch their twisted fairy tale anymore. But even without watching, I heard the cracks. Mutual friends started reaching out. One messaged me directly. Hey, I don't mean to stir stuff, but Tobias and Sienna were fighting in public the other night. Like, full-on screaming. I didn't ask for details. Didn't need them. It's what happens when two people bond over betrayal. They eventually turn on each other. Because there's no trust at the core. Just shared guilt. Another old friend, Damien, sent me a message a few days later. We hadn't talked since before the engagement blew up. Didn't want to choose sides back then, he wrote. But I respect how you've handled this. Quiet. Clear. Brutal, in the best way. I thanked him. That was enough. There were no grand declarations. No press releases. Just the slow shift of perception. People who once raised eyebrows at my silence were now beginning to understand that silence isn't weakness, it's strategy. It's composure. It's restraint with a fuse. I wasn't trying to be a hero. I wasn't trying to hurt anyone. I was just done lying down. And as Tobias and Sienna twisted in the weight of their own choices, I finally understood what it meant to reclaim your name. Not by shouting, not by fighting, but by standing so still, the truth echoes around you. The knock on my door came at 7:42 p.m. I watched it happen through the peephole, slow and deliberate. Not angry, not panicked. Just there. My father, standing on the other side of my apartment door, in the gray overcoat he always wore during serious conversations. His expression wasn't one of apology. It was one of performance, tight jaw, lowered eyes, rehearsed humility. Like he was about to deliver a eulogy and thought that alone would earn him grace. I didn't open the door. Not because I was afraid. Because I knew what he was there to do. Spin it. Redefine it. Rewrite it. The same way he always had, since we were kids. When Tobias stole, he was curious. When I defended myself, I was difficult. That door stayed locked because I refused to be recast in a script where I was the ungrateful one. He knocked again. 3 slow taps. Then, silence. And finally, the sound of his footsteps retreating. A few minutes later, the email started. First from my mother. Long paragraphs that looked sincere at a glance, but read like PR statements. We miss you. We didn't mean to hurt you. Tobias is going through a rough time. They used the word family like a leash. They used grace like currency they thought I owed them. I read every word like fiction. They weren't writing to me. They were writing to the image of me they wanted back, the compliant version. The one who stayed quiet. Who smoothed things over. who gave up his seat at the table so they wouldn't have to sit in discomfort. I didn't reply. That night, I made a decision. I moved out of Malcolm's place and into a one-bedroom apartment I found 2 neighborhoods over. Nothing fancy, bare walls, plain floors, just enough room to breathe. But it was mine. My name on the lease. My name on the mailbox. No family name looming over it. No past waiting in the hallway. I didn't share the address. Didn't announce the move. Didn't post a photo with a cheesy caption like New Beginnings. I changed my number. New SIM. New service. Only Malcolm and 3 others got it. The family group chat? I never rejoined. My mother had tried adding me twice. The first time, I left immediately. The second, I blocked the number she used. They'd made their choice when they chose Tobias and Sienna. They could keep it. Let them pass the phone around the dinner table, staring at the empty icon next to my name, whispering about how cold I'd become. I wasn't cold. I was clear. One afternoon, I stopped by the coffee shop near my new place and ran into an old neighbor, Miss Darlene. She squinted at me for a second, then smiled like she'd just spotted a familiar face in a dream. "Where have you been hiding, sweetheart?" she asked. I shrugged. "Just needed some air." She nodded like she understood everything without a single detail. Then she leaned in and said something I'll never forget. "Sometimes when folks push you out, it's because they know you see too much." That sat with me all day. She was right. They didn't want me quiet because I was wrong. They wanted me quiet because I was right. Because I saw the favoritism, the double standards, the games. Because I remembered the things they conveniently forgot. Because I kept receipts. They didn't want peace. They wanted submission. But I had outgrown that version of myself. The one who internalized every insult, minimized every hurt, and called it being the bigger person. No more. My peace didn't look like forgiveness over a shared dinner. It looked like stillness. My peace was slow mornings without my phone blowing up. It was setting my own table, brewing my own coffee, eating my dinner in silence without someone telling me I should let it go. It was deleting photos without ceremony, unfollowing names that no longer meant safety, and looking in the mirror knowing I didn't need their version of closure to move forward. A week later, Malcolm came by with a bottle of wine and takeout. "You good?" he asked, watching me settle on the new couch. "Yeah," I said, and meant it. "No Tobias sightings?" "None." Guess he finally got the message. Malcolm raised a brow. "You think they'll ever really let it go?" "I don't care," I replied. "That's the difference now. I'm not living my life waiting for their version of right." He nodded. "That's growth." That night, as we sat eating in front of the TV, I felt the weight of everything that had happened. Not in a heavy way. More like something finally laying down beside me and going still. They could keep their awkward dinners, their forced smiles, their fractured stories. I had silence. And for the first time, it wasn't punishment. It was freedom. The final email from the real estate agent came on a quiet Thursday morning. The duplex had officially sold. Full asking price. The buyers, an engaged couple from out of state, were scheduled to move in by the end of the month. With that single line of text, everything shifted. The property was no longer in my name. And just like that, the last tie I had to Tobias, to the structure of false promises and family expectations, was gone. I stood in the center of my new living room. Bare floors, a borrowed couch, and a single framed photo of me and Malcolm at graduation on the shelf. No family portraits. No ghosts in gold frames. Just silence and sunlight pouring in through the half-drawn blinds. I exhaled. Tobias was out. Word traveled fast. Too fast. Within days, whispers started weaving through the family web like a crack in a frozen lake, silent, spreading, impossible to ignore. Sienna had moved back in with her sister. That much I knew from a mutual acquaintance who texted me a photo of her at a small wine bar downtown, hunched over a table with her head in her hands. No ring on her finger. No Tobias beside her. The image didn't make me feel vindicated. It just confirmed what I already knew. They'd imploded. Not because I tore them down, but because they built something with rot at the foundation. My parents tried to hold the pieces together, of course. My mother still posted the occasional filtered selfie, though no more group shots, no festive captions. Just wine glasses, candles, Bible verses about grace and unity that felt more like cries for control than reflections of faith. Then came the texts. "Mom, it's not the same without you." "Dad, please. You're all we have left." I read those words more than I should have. Not because I believed them, but because I needed to understand the pattern. They didn't miss me. They missed my silence. They missed the version of me who forgave and moved on before they had to look at themselves. They missed the buffer, the scapegoat, the steady, reliable son who'd clean up messes without complaint, the emotional locksmith who always opened the door no matter how many times they slammed it in his face. But I was gone. Not geographically, not entirely emotionally, but gone in the way that matters. Gone from the illusion that blood means loyalty. Gone from the guilt that made me second-guess what I deserved. Gone from the house I once co-signed for. Now sold, emptied, keys handed over to strangers with no idea what happened there. I didn't reply to my parents. Not because I hated them, but because I no longer accepted their terms. The day the sale finalized, Malcolm invited me out to a small rooftop bar we used to frequent back when we thought 27 was old and heartbreaks still had expiration dates. The sky was purple gold, the air warm, and for once, I didn't feel like I was carrying someone else's wreckage on my back. He raised his glass. To the last nail in the coffin. I raised mine, but said nothing, because it wasn't a celebration, not in the loud, laughing way. It was more like standing at a grave and finally feeling okay to walk away. Over the next few weeks, invitations stopped coming. Cousin birthdays, baby showers, that random, just come by the house for drinks that used to land in my inbox like clockwork. They dried up, not because they hated me, but because I was a mirror now. And no one likes facing what they helped break. I heard through the grapevine that Tobias had moved back in with my parents. He was sleeping in the same room we shared as kids, stripped of the fake business titles and false independence. My dad told someone at work he was helping Tobias get back on his feet again. A familiar phrase. A tired loop. As for Sienna? Nothing. No messages. No calls. Just that silence that follows a hurricane. I found an old hoodie of hers while unpacking a box I'd missed. I held it for a second. It smelled like her lavender detergent. I didn't feel rage. I didn't feel longing. I just felt done. I tossed it in the donation pile without ceremony. Because that's all she was now, a past tense. A closed chapter. The best part of it all? I didn't have to explain anything anymore. Not to family. Not to friends. Not to myself. The story had unfolded on its own. The receipts were there. The photos vanished. The golden boy tarnished himself, and the parents who bet on him were left holding an empty house and a silence they never expected. They didn't collapse because of me. They collapsed because truth doesn't need to be shouted to burn everything down. Sometimes, it just waits. And when it arrives, it doesn't knock. It walks right in. Tobias is back where he started, living under the roof of the very people who once called him unstoppable. My parents never posted a photo of him returning. No captions about family first. No, we're so proud declarations. Just silence. Maybe shame. Maybe stubbornness. It didn't matter. The image was enough. The golden boy, stripped of the glow, dragging his duffel bag back into the same house where he used to lord his success over everyone else. The same house that birthed every excuse he'd ever been handed. Sienna? I haven't seen her. I don't look for her either. She could be 3 blocks away or 3 continents, and I wouldn't care. The part of me that used to flinch at the sound of her name now barely registers it. I assume she's rewriting the story somewhere, trying to make herself the heartbroken one in the version she tells over drinks to people who don't know better. It didn't work out, she probably says, because he changed. And in a way, she's right. I did change. I got tired of being predictable. As for me, I have peace. Not the dramatic, post-breakup, blast music and buy new furniture kind of peace. Real peace. Quiet mornings with coffee in my own kitchen. No phone buzzing with accusations or fake apologies. No forced family dinners. No gaslighting masquerading as concern. Just air. Just space. Just me. I wake up without the weight of needing to prove anything to anyone. I don't need their understanding anymore. Or their validation. I'm not building my days around the chance that they'll wake up and see my side of things. That's the trick they never tell you about healing. It doesn't happen when they apologize. It happens when you stop needing them to. The keys to the old duplex? Gone. The last payment from Sienna cleared and was used to furnish my new space. I bought a bookshelf, a real one. Sturdy, walnut finish, the kind that doesn't tip over at the first gust of wind. I filled it with stories that didn't end with betrayal. Stories where people stood back up. My phone, my real phone, the one with the new number, has only 6 contacts. No family. No Sienna. Just people who never needed a crisis to remember my worth. Sometimes I sit on my balcony at night with a glass of wine and think about how they wanted this to go. I wasn't supposed to survive it. Not the breakup, not the betrayal, not the exile. I was supposed to shrink, to retreat, to play the wounded, bitter man who can't move on. But instead, I became undeniable. Not in revenge, not in spite, just by refusing to vanish. They wanted me quiet, invisible, disposable, and I almost gave them that. I almost disappeared into the apology loop they'd rehearsed for years. But then I realized something. I was never the one who should have been apologizing. They were just loud. That's all. Loud and united and relentless in their demand for comfort. But comfort at my expense? Never again. People still ask, once in a while, those few who come around, do you think you'll ever talk to them again? And I smile. Not because it's funny, but because I already know the answer. No, not out of anger. Out of clarity. The thing about fire is, it shows you what was never built to last. And now that the smoke has cleared, I see them for what they were. Conditional. Convenient. Fleeting. I wasn't the victim. I was the lesson. I wasn't the discarded one. I was the mirror they couldn't look into. And when people ask, whatever happened to you and your family? I say this. They didn't lose me. They let me go. There's a difference. The last time my mother texted me, it was short. Just 6 words. Your father's birthday is next week. I stared at it for a full minute before deleting it. Because my presence isn't a switch they can flip when the guilt gets loud. I'm not a spare chair they can pull up when one of theirs breaks. I was never a placeholder. I was the builder. The one who made things work. Who bent backward to keep things whole. Who gave and gave and gave. And when I finally stopped giving, they called me cold. But what they really meant was, I stopped being convenient. And they don't know how to love people they can't use. So now, when I walk into my home, I walk in without flinching. When I sleep without waking up in anger. When I laugh, it isn't brittle. It doesn't need an audience. It doesn't need permission. They made their choice. And I made mine. So when they tell the story someday, and they will, they'll say, he just walked away. But the truth? I didn't walk. I shut the door and locked it from the outside. Permanently.